Hello and welcome to Workman Wisdom. My name's Rick Geha, and I'm excited to talk to you today about a subject that I talk about quite a bit, actually. In fact, I don't think there's a day in my life when I'm working, coaching, speaking, or whatever I'm doing in the real estate industry that I don't talk about this subject. And the subject title is prospecting. We can also call it lead generation. We can also call it getting business, anything you want. It turns out, since I started selling real estate in 1980, almost 37 years ago, that word instills a lot of fear in people. It makes people think about, oh my gosh, prospecting, I hate that. And what comes to mind immediately when people talk about prospecting, for some reason, is they think immediately about cold prospecting. And really, there's so many ways to make your prospecting warm that there's no need to have that kind of fear or to instill in yourself anything that would be other than saying, the term prospecting is something I should put my arms around and embrace because it's how I'm going to create the results I'm looking for in my real estate business. Now, this video is going to circulate, so some new people are going to see it, and some experienced people, and some middle-of-the-road people, and some big teams, and some buyer's agents, and some listing agents. At the end of the day, no matter what you're doing, I mean, let's be honest, a taxi driver needs to lead generate or prospect. They're driving around looking for somebody else to get in their car and let them drive somewhere. Now, to kind of get us started, I want to talk about two separate little things here, and just so we know the difference, and that is that there's active prospecting and passive prospecting. I'll give you an idea. When I started in the real estate business, there was a lot of this thing called floor time, where you went in the office, you sat by the phone, and for those 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever time was designated, if anybody called in, then you got that lead, and that was called floor time. Another type, that's passive prospecting, by the way, and another type of passive prospecting is open houses. You're sitting there and you're waiting for people to come in. Now, we can create a difference. In other words, you can do some things for open houses that allow you to turn it more into active prospecting. And today we're not going to really cover that subject, but in general, I wanted you to know the difference between active and passive prospecting. Now, today we're talking about sort of the when and why. When do you prospect and why would you prospect? Well, I got to tell you, I've interviewed thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of real estate agents in my 20 years of speaking and coaching, and of course, being a real estate agent for 37 years almost. And this is what I found, that we would rather send out a bunch of postcards when we're broke and have no money in hopes that it would keep us from actually having to speak to someone, and that they would just pick up the phone and call us and say, hey, I got your postcard, or that one of our relatives or our friends would call us and say, gee, I have a friend who wants to buy or sell a house. That's fine and dandy, but unless you've got a huge marketing budget, that's not going to bring you enough business to really create a lastable, sustainable real estate business. So when I think about prospecting, I think about this one basic rule, that we need to daily, 5 days a week out of the 7 days, prospect for a minimum of 1 hour. Now, I'd like to say 3 hours, and I can tell you that the masses will turn off the video right when I say that. Really, turn it off, don't turn it off. But bottom line, what I coach people to is a minimum of 1 hour a day of prospecting. I've had some people say, okay, I'll do an open house for 3 hours. That'll hit up 3 of my hours, which is like 3 days. Wrong. It's a minimum of an hour a day, every day, 5 days a week. That means you still get 2 days of the week off of prospecting. Now, why? Why do you prospect? You prospect because that's how we get our business. There are millions of ways to prospect. In fact, I was in a seminar earlier today before filming this video, and the question came up to a lot of the top producers in the room, are leads a problem? Listen to that question. Are leads a problem? No one raised their hand. No one in the room. Then he reversed it to make sure they understood it. He said, does anybody here believe that getting leads is definitely not an issue and not a problem? Everybody raised their hand. So what I want you to consider for a minute is this. If the biggest producers in the area, the United States and Canada, for instance, are saying that getting leads is not a problem, why is it that most of us are saying getting leads is a problem? And that's because we don't get the power of prospecting. See, nobody really likes prospecting. I used to joke around that there's maybe 9 people in the whole United States and Canada that throw the covers off every day and say, wow, I get to prospect today, I can't wait. Well, guess what? I'm not one of those 9 people, and I doubt you are. You probably wouldn't be watching this. So what I'd like you to consider for a minute is, if those top producers don't find it a problem, why is it? And I'll tell you, it's because they already paid their dues. I have a friend of mine way up in Northern California. His name's Corey. He spent 2 years 3 hours every day, 5 days a week, 2 years cranking out phone calls, prospecting like a crazy man. And today he has a huge business, closing in excess of 400 transactions, and he does not prospect a bit. Plenty of leads. In other words, he's got people calling, phone numbers, generating leads. He's got marketing going on. Why? Because he started with the basics. And ladies and gentlemen, that's about why we do it. We start with the basics. Now, I'm going to suggest for a minute that as you start to roll your real estate business, that you have 4 pillars or 4 ways of generating leads, and each of those ways will in their own right be able to fulfill all of your goals for that year. So for instance, if you said, I want to sell 25 houses this year, I'm going to say, all right, let's say one of your pillars is my database, that I'm going to work my database really well, and that I should be able to sell 25 houses by working my database really well. I want you to have 4 pillars. Not right away, that might be a little overwhelming. I just want you to work into getting 4 pillars, 4 different ways. Maybe internet marketing, maybe farming, maybe database, open houses. There's lots of ways. I could go on and on and on. I was listening to somebody earlier today talk about how they farm divorce lawyers and probate attorneys and things like that. So lots of ways to pick up 4 different pillars of prospecting. So when you're thinking about this, it has to be that I have to get control of my calendar so that I can fit in that hour a day. And when I'm doing it, see, because we don't like it. I already said that. We don't really generally like prospecting, so we'll allow ourselves to be interrupted so that we don't have to do it. So what I'd like you to think about is that I'm going to set my hour a day, and then I'm going to make my phone on silent, put it face down, and I'm going to go to work making those calls. Shake it up a little bit, go out and do some door knocking once in a while, do some things that are more fun and maybe a little bit more enjoyable in the prospecting arena. Rejection is never exciting, and rejection is a fact of life when we prospect. So you have to learn that. It takes time, it takes rejection, and it takes failure for you to succeed through it. So when we think about prospecting and we're talking about the when and why, the when is every day, minimum of an hour a day. And the why is so that you'll make the money so that you can say, I succeeded in real estate and do for my loved ones and family what I wanted to do when I set out to be a realtor in the first place. Last thing I want to say about this is that when you do your 1 hour of lead generation, make sure you're generating new leads. Lead generation specifically means that, generating new leads. It doesn't mean following up on old leads. That's simple. You already know those people. You feel comfortable. So make sure that when you're setting up that calendar for your prospecting, that lead follow-up is in a separate time zone than your lead generating. That's a great point for today. I know I'm going to use it in my business. I hope you will too. Thanks for joining us here on a Workman Wisdom Day.